Today we're going to focus on multiplying rational expressions. So when it comes to multiplying rational expression, it's just basically a fraction multiplied with another fraction. So when we're working with multiplying rational expressions, we also have to check if we can put it in simplest form, meaning that for each expression that we have to see if we can factor it into its simplest form. So let's take a look at our first example. In our first fraction, we have 2x over x minus 5 times, in the second fraction, x squared minus 4x minus 5 over 8x squared minus 24x. So let's take a look at where we can simplify, meaning where can we factor. If we look at the first fraction, in the numerator, it's just 2x, and the denominator is just x minus 5. There's nothing you can do to factor, meaning it's already in the simplest form, so we're going to leave the first fraction alone. So let's take a look at the second fraction. In the numerator, we have x squared minus 4x minus 5, while we have 8x squared minus 24x in the denominator. So that means that we're going to have to factor both parts. And what I mean by factor is all the techniques that was covered in the previous section. So let's look at parts by parts. So I'm going to look at the numerator first. So x squared minus 4x minus 5. So a is 1, b is negative 4, and then c is negative 5. So just like how we did before, here's my x table. So the top number, a times c, which is negative 5, and then b, which is negative 4. So the only factors that you can think of for negative 5, whereas the sum and difference is negative 4, would be positive 1 and negative 5. So it's going to be negative 5x and 1x. So when I set up my factor by grouping, it will be x squared plus x, because of 1x, minus 5x minus 5. Alright, factor the left side with this GCF, which is just x. So it's going to be x on the outside. X squared divided by x will be x. Positive x divided by x will be plus 1. Now next we're going to factor the right side. Both are divisible by negative 5. And the reason it's negative because the first term on the right side is negative. So minus 5 here. Negative 5x divided by negative 5 is just x. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is positive 1. Since, again, the inside is the same, I'm going to group my outside factors. So it's going to be x minus 5 in parentheses, and then x plus 1 in parentheses. So that's for the numerator. Now let's talk about the denominator, which is 8x squared minus 24x. So here we're just going to be looking at the GCF because it's two terms. So what's in common between these two is 8. In addition, they both have x, and the lowest one is x to the 1 power, so I'm going to include x in my GCF. So 8x squared divided by 8x and negative 24x divided by 8x. So my GCF will be on the outside, so 8x. 8x squared divided by 8x will just simply be x. Negative 24x divided by 8x will be negative 3. So those are my factors for the denominator. So let's bring these back. Let me underline this. That's for the denominator, and this is the numerator. So we're going to bring it back into the fraction. So again, we didn't do anything to the first fraction, so it's going to be 2x over x minus 5 times the numerator, which is x minus 5 times x plus 1. And then our denominator, 8x, x minus 3. Now, when we are multiplying, and it's in its factor form, basically, multiplying fraction is going to be top with top, bottom with bottom. So, when we're multiplying, we're not going to multiply all the way. We're just going to put the factors next to each other. So what I mean is, I'm going to write 2x next to the factors at the top. So x minus 5 and x plus 1. Then for the denominator, x minus 5, but now I'm going to put in parentheses because in the expression, 8x, and then x minus 3. Alright, now we're going to focus on simplifying, meaning that we're going to divide common factors. Common factor that you see in the numerator and the denominator. So let's take a look. I notice that I have an x minus 5 in the denominator and an x minus 5 in the numerator. So I'm going to divide them, and they're all going to become 1. Next, I'm going to take a look at the 2x and the 8x. They're both divisible by 2 and the x. So when I simplify 2x over 8x, the 2x will become 1 and the 8x will become 4. And there's nothing else that we can divide with the common factors. Next, I'm going to write out what we have. So we're going to have 1 times 1 times x plus 1 for the numerator. And then for the denominator, I'm going to have 1 times 4 times x minus 3. So let's multiply the numerator. 1 times x plus 1 will simply be x plus 1. Since it's by itself, I can write it without parentheses, but it's okay if you want to include it. For the denominator, 1 times 4 times x minus 3 will simply be 4 times x minus 3. So I just include parentheses on the x minus 3 because it's multiplying by the 4. You can include parentheses on the 4, but you don't have to. It's okay. And then checking, there's nothing I could do to simplify, so this will be my final answer. To review with this example, again, check if you can simplify by factoring, and once you have finished factoring, put the factors together, meaning that when you multiply the fractions top with top, bottom with bottom, we just put the factors next to each other. Then we're going to divide common factors. When you divide, it becomes 1. Except for this example, we had 2x over 8x. Basically, when you simplify, it becomes 1 over 4. And then we bring all the simplest forms, simplest factors, to this side, and then just multiply straight across, and then what you have is your final answer.